All right. Hello, everybody. Well, I'm going to, let's share a few initial thoughts. It's not easy going back in time, intellectually, philosophically. It makes me cringe to think what I may have thought 4 years ago. One of the reasons is because I will see videos pop up from the past and I will click on them out of curiosity to hear what I was thinking at that time. And I often hear a person that is speaking in a way that is just riddled with mistakes. Um, I typically get the essence of what I'm trying to say when I look back, but as I progress forward in my intellectual journey and my journey as a philosopher, um, I've been thinking about this feeling and whether or not it is something that will ever subside, or if this is just the perpetual motion machine of this drive within me to want to just always continue to improve how I communicate and how I engage in the dialectic. So, what the series is going to be about is really peering into my own mind and my own thinking. I've been keeping a daily journal going back 4 years of some thoughts that come to mind that I thought were noteworthy. And maybe what inspired me to do this was people like Marcus Aurelius. And I don't know what I'm going to find. I have not looked back in my thoughts journal. So I'm going to be doing this live in front of, the audience, and people can go back and examine it. But I'm going to try and keep this as clear and as truthful as possible. I haven't done any pre-workup or anything for this video. I had this idea that I wanted to do this, and I think it's good for thinkers to do this, to go back and see what mistakes we were making and some things we might have been leaning on that we still lean on today that are unnecessary or causing maybe a bit of irrationality. My my philosophical quest, from a purely philosophical standpoint, examining the category of philosophy, I want to I want to paint as much wisdom onto my being as I can in the short time that I am here. And most of my most of my work day, I am simply just, thinking about ideas. That's how I spend most of my days, thinking about ideas. And of course, I run Pangburn, and we do large scale live events, and those are great. And but those are kind of part of my moral quest to want to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. Um, it's kind of that is somewhat separate from my own journey as a philosopher and the ideas and wisdom that I hope to leave uh, for humanity when I'm gone. And whether or not any of my work lasts or any of it's worthwhile to other people, I'm not sure. I don't know if it will be. But I will only ever put work out there or publish work that in that moment I'm feeling that it is in line with my moral quest, which is to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. Um, and it will be interesting to see as I go through this journal, as we travel back in history, um, how much my approach and even the words I use, the words, the language that is manifesting from my thoughts, how how different that may be, going back even such a short distance as 4 years. Um, so this will be very interesting. I'm excited for this. To stay in tune with the topic here, I have a little bit of interstellar instrumental piano playing in the background to provide a little artistic inspiration as I go through this process. But I am okay. I've clicked to the top of my Discord server tab called Trav's Thoughts, and here we go. Everyone, feel free to come and go as you please. I really appreciate it if you drop a like on the stream, and this should be chill listening material for you, but we'll see what comes up. So the first post from October 8th, 2020. I've spent my life barging through the red tape, defying tradition. If you want my annoyance to dissipate, show me your solid foundation in skepticism. Then I'm gone, only until the irrationality grows back. I will be your statesman, your endless lifeline, your clown, only until the irrationality grows back. So this is interesting. Obviously, there's if you want my annoyance to dissipate, show me your solid foundation skepticism. So I'm really, at this stage, and then I'm gone, only until the irrationality grows back. I will be your statesman, your endless lifeline, your clown. I'll be whatever you need so long as you bring some skepticism to the table. I think that's the essence of what I'm getting back here. And I still agree with this. I will be your statesman, your endless lifeline, your clown. And of course, irrationality has always been something that in my life has been something that I wanted to battle against. Irrationality is basically the contemporary way that we talk about wisdom. Um, that's what I've come to believe, is that we don't really say wisdom as much anymore, but we will reference the rational and irrational. And rationality, and I will talk about a bit about these ideas as things come to my mind when we go through this. Um, but of course, like, to be rational doesn't simply just mean to engage in rationality and to rationalize. To be rational also includes having the goals set to be rational too. You can't be rational unless you have goals, values, something that you are working towards, so we can measure whether you are being rational or not. So interesting. Okay, here's the next post. This is from uh, September 9th, 2020. Cruelty is a byproduct of social extremism. When you find yourself in a battle to become the cruelest, be a bringer of joy instead. Yeah, I still agree with this. Cruelty is a byproduct of social extremism. This would be a nod to me observing how much cruelty is born out of things like radical political extremism, right? When you see like people being cruel to one another, let's say from a Black Lives Matter perspective or from like a Proud Boys perspective. Something I detest greatly is any level of social extremism. Be a bringer of joy instead. Yes, I agree. Okay, here we go. When the torpedo hits, the haters act very brave, without doubt, and quickly. The character is dead, but wait, the target remains. As the dust settles and their belief in the power of social extremism is silenced, all they can do is wonder why they couldn't kill the character. When the torpedo hits, the haters act very brave. So when someone's life explodes, let's say on the internet, haters will come out and they are all of a sudden so brave to kick this dog while it's down, without doubt to their convictions and quickly. And they profess the character is dead. But then once the dust settles, they see that the target remains and their belief in the power of social extremism is silenced. All they can do is wonder uh, why they couldn't kill the character. So what I'm getting at here is that you really can't kill someone um, or kill someone's character by these means. The character still remains. It may kill their character in the eyes of some or many, but the character will still remain. I think that's my greater point here, and a point I still agree with. Well, so far so good. All right, we get into September 11th, 2020. Wow, 9/11. Or sorry, no, we're into October 11th. Sorry. Be ideologically precise but gentle. Hmm. Be ideologically precise but gentle. Um, Not always. Not always. Gentleness and preciseness. These are great values at some level. But let's not take this to be a maxim to live by. Um, and then I go on to say, and this might have been part of the same thought, but settle the psychological cacophony with artistic and scientific inspiration. Settle the psychological cacophony with artistic and scientific inspiration. Yeah, so if you are under psychological bombardment from what's going on in your life, there is a way to ease some of that tension through various means of artistic and scientific inspiration. These are terms I used at that time, artistic and scientific inspiration. I still use it once in a while, but these are ways to describe, you know, artistic inspiration is quite self-explanatory. Just engaging with, taking in, and creating art, and garnering some inspiration from that. And scientific inspiration would be being inspired by uh, exploration and discovering what is. Um, and I I outline scientific inspiration because I think it's the best way of going about understanding the objects in reality and how they function. Um, and there is something exciting to me about engaging in that, turning over rocks in the wilderness, seeing a creature that you have no idea what it is, maybe taking a photo about it and discovering and researching what that creature is. Maybe it's a new creature. Uh, but yeah, that was the point of this, and I agree that you can settle the psychological cacophony with artistic and scientific inspiration. Oh, you guys are having a conversation about Gandhi. Very cool. Justin Brown said, "Was it Gandhi said first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win?" Interesting. Hello, everyone who's tuning in. Feel free to take a look at the description if you want to know what's going on here. Oh, I can take this down. My Canucks jersey isn't hanging. People are beautifully and dangerously unpredictable. Yes, I agree with this. Are people beautifully unpredictable? Sure. Um, a person will do something that you did not expect, and it's just a beautiful thing. Dangerously unpredictable, same thing. You didn't expect this kind of uh, danger to arise out of certain people. I wrote down a thought. I'm watching Starship Troopers tonight for fun. The acting in this movie is hilariously awful. Condomless sex is like a speeding ticket. If you ever get caught and administered a sizable ticket, you'll likely slow down for a while. I don't know where that came from. Um, Condomless sex is like a speeding ticket. If you ever get caught and administered a sizable ticket, you'll likely slow down for a while. I guess the ticket would be some kind of like note from your doctor. Just have to respond to this quickly. All right. Ennoble those around you as your gateways to well-being. Ennoble those around you as your gateways to well-being. So recognizing uh, that those around you hold a very high, um, yield very high in this hierarchy of well-being to you, those around you, partly because we are a social species, and it doesn't seem like you can really thrive from a well-being perspective on your own, truly on your own, you know. Um, so ennoble those around you as a gateway, as your gateways to well-being. Mm. Yeah, a lot of, like, suffering avoidance calculus philosophy out there, like the Jordan Peterson brand, will very much focus, I think, too much on the individual. The group, which would include family, right, is 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 something that must be mastered as well, not just what's inside you, but what you're putting out to others and how you are reciprocating what others are putting out to you. Yes, so I agree with this. You are not enlightened if you attack individuals. You are a cunt. You are enlightened if you engage in the war of ideas. So this is a comment. I This is one of these cringe comments that I look back on. Um, you are not enlightened if you attack individuals. I agree with this. But then I go on to say, you are a cunt. You are enlightened if you engage in the war of ideas. So the you are a cunt thing is unwise in serving my purposes, irrational. This is doing nothing to serve my purposes to say you are a cunt. So this is me smacking uh this is me smacking myself going back to October 28th, 2020. And I felt strongly enough to tweet this out to the world as well. You are not enlightened if you attack individuals. You are a cunt. Now, some people might say, yeah, you really put a stamp on that. But I would consider this uh, not meeting the requirements, the minimum requirements of a fruitful dialectic. I am targeting the individual and not the idea. If I would have said, you are not enlightened if you attack individuals, and isn't it funny that I make an individual attack? You are a cunt. I could have said, you are not enlightened if you attack individuals. Um, like like that is a cunty idea or something like that. But again, there are much more helpful ways to deliver that idea. So I give uh, the Trav of the past on that one no gold stars. Cringe. Yes, I am reading live chat. All right. And if you guys want to know what I'm doing, just check out the description here. Each state of potential contains infinite possibility, but it's in the plausibilities that we will find what is. Okay, let's look at this. This was a thought I had October 31st, 2020. Each state of potential contains infinite possibility. Now, this is something that I've come to word differently. You know, I think the more we understand about reality tells us that it's it's not consistent with what we know to say that anything is impossible. That's my current position. And from that, I make a statement: each state of potential contains infinite possibility. This statement is too absolute for me. I wouldn't make it anymore. But the following part, it's in the plausibilities that we will find what is. Yes. So still that delineation between possibility and plausibility is very important. So the latter part I agree with. It's in the plausibilities that we will find what is. Sure. Plausibilities are what matters, for example, in when doing science. Uh, so this is also a bit of a um, poking a bit of fun at those who are obsessed with possibility when examining their own epistemology, which I think is a mistake. So I would give myself a 5 out of 10 on that one. Okay. The anxious mist of anticipation suspends out to view this night in its finality. Okay, so this one's just a poetic, a bit of poetic verse that popped into my mind. It seems the ancient mist of the anxious mist. Sorry, so this anxious mist. So it would almost be a mist that's like vibrating with anticipation. The anxious mist of anticipation suspends out, so it's suspending out like this to view this night in its finality. Ooh, that's a pretty dark. Well, not necessarily to view this night in its finality. Maybe maybe a an anxious anticipation for this night to be over. Um, Yeah, there's a few ways that can be taken, but this would be a bit of artistic expression from myself. A little romanticism from me. You look worth it all. Just say this to them. Hmm. You look worth it all. Well, that one started quite the discussion. Oh, I go on to explain that this was a song lyric. I was working on a song. I do compose music, and I've been playing piano since I was very 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 young. Um, So that's my main instrument. I play a bit of guitar as well. When, it looks like yeah, this was 2020, right? Okay, yeah, when Biden, won the election, I made a statement about what I was seeing from the the Trump supporters who were losing their mind. I said, "You will all be fine. Don't become hashtag blue man bad." Well, that one got a bit of a stir. Gingerly tread upon the pools of pleasure before you. Time is not the boogeyman, it is the cure. Gingerly tread upon the pools of pleasure before you. Okay, those are two separate thoughts. Gingerly tread upon the pools of pleasure before you. I wonder what I meant here. Yeah. So I think I'm getting at like take heed with uh with due seriousness Go ahead and tread upon the pools of pleasure before you. So don't do this carelessly, do it with care. Yeah, I very much agree with this. Time is not the boogeyman, it is the cure. Hmm. Time is not the boogeyman, it is the cure. I think it's unhealthy for us to treat time as though it's our enemy or that it's scary. And perhaps what I mean by this is a cure, it is the cure, is that it gives um, finiteness to us, the phenomena of changing energy and matter. That's what time is from a physics standpoint. Um, it is uh, it is the cure. Well, I think it's the cure to a completely still void, which perhaps means it's the cure um, to life. Save the feature, release the bug. Ah, so I'm talking about there are different things that will um, serve our purposes and things that will be causing detriments to our purposes. So the point here is to identify the things that are bugs in our system and not positive attributes or features to our system or our ways of thinking. Is another way to think about it. In our ways of thinking, there might be some toxic things that we constantly seem to go to, but and we haven't done put in the work to overcome those quote unquote bugs. Um, and sometimes we're confused on okay, there's big disagreements between, let's say, the red pill community and other people who don't subscribe to that, where someone in the red pill community might be like, no, you need to become a monster, not to be monstrous towards people, but that people know that you can be monstrous if the time comes. Like some people would call that a bug and not a feature. Whereas other people would be like, no, it's a feature. That's why I said it. It's one of my maxims or it's one of my values. So I think that's important to save the feature and release the bugs. That's what I was getting at there. And that was November 10th, 2020. We're in pandemic world. Justin Brown says, "Time heals all wounds," they say. Um, I'm not. I'm not convinced of that. And to respond to that, um, it kind of is in line with what I think is a very bad. Well, it's a cultural bug and not a feature. Let's say this idea of I kind of call it the cult of forgiveness, as though forgiveness uh, is a virtue to be held in the highest esteem. I don't think so. I think this cult of forgiveness was created by people who require forgiveness to be able to continue to function in social settings or in families, you know. There are unforgivable things. I really believe that. And you don't and the cult of forgiveness will tell you that you need to learn how to forgive, or else those things you don't forgive people for will continue to eat at you forever. There's no evidence of that. Zero. Zero. What we have evidence of is that some people do feel better when they forgive people for certain transgressions or abuse or whatever. Um, but that's to hold that, to subscribe to this cult of forgiveness and hold that up as like, this is a necessity in order for you to be able to move on. No, I'm sorry, but no. Um, you can move on perfectly fine, and you can reason and rationalize um, a past transgression in your mind and say, I understand why they did it. Uh, I understand all the moving parts and how they didn't really have the support or education to know that this thing was wrong, and this happened to me or whatever because of that. That's all fine, Danny. You can understand that without forgiving them for the act. The cult of forgiveness, one of the most um, dangerous cults for a social species. I think it really creates this lack of accountability for abusers and those who get away with constantly doing wrong without any repercussion. The weight falls on uh, the individuals who are being victimized to become the entity to fix the problem. And that's why I call it the cult of forgiveness. All right, let's see. Tremble through social response anticipation and never lie. Wrong. Now, here's one where I completely disagree with this. This is something I said November 12th, 2020 at 9:17 p.m. I had this thought and I wrote it down, and the thought was tremble through social response anticipation and never lie. Now, the never lie thing, this is one of Sam Harris's maxims, and it's a bad maxim. If your child, okay, I'm an atheist, right? I don't believe in an afterlife. I'm not convinced of an afterlife, and I think you know that's a man-made myth, and that's fine. It's possible that I'm wrong about that, but whatever. That's my current position. Always open to changing my mind as a fallibilist, by the way. So imagine I had, let's say, a daughter, and she has contracted a horrible bone cancer. She's in her fourth stage of that cancer. She's only got a week to live, let's say, maybe a few days, and she's on her deathbed, and I am by her side. And she says, "Daddy, are we going to be together again in heaven? Because I know I'm going to die, and the only thing that makes me feel okay and not scared and good is that we are going to be together again. And Daddy, I trust uh, what you believe and what you say about this. Are we going to be together? Please tell me." In that moment, I think you would have to be morally bankrupt, even if you don't believe this, to not play in the fantasy with your daughter. This is a moral imperative that you do what you can for your daughter to make her feel as comfortable as she can be, even if you believe that when the lights go out for her, that's it. So this is where Sam Harris's absolutist view on, never lie to your children, is a failure. It's a very bad maxim. You can read his book, his novella, on lying. It's a very short book, but, there are, of course, uh, instances where you should lie, and you should lie to your children. Um, and what Sam would argue there, if I presented that scenario to him, actually, we've talked about it. Um, and to paraphrase, Sam says something like, um, there are ways to dance around actually lying to your daughter in that situation, um, that would still provide her the feeling that this was perhaps going to occur and that you were going to be with her, and it wouldn't take a lie. Um, and my rebuttal to that is, number one, why take such risks simply to hold on to this maxim? What's the point? What is the greater moral worth to your well-being and to the well-being of those around you, in this case, your daughter, um, to uh, to tap dance around the issue like that? Um, and number two, why it's a really bad maxim for humanity is that most people do not have the skills to successfully tap dance and convince their child without lying. Um, just the slightest hesitation of that might fill your daughter with that horrible feeling of, oh, I can see it in my dad's eyes. This is it. This is why I find it to be morally reprehensible and moral bankruptcy to not just say what you can, regardless of what you believe, to give your daughter comfort in these final days of her life. Let me know in the comment section what you guys feel about that. How do you feel about lying? Do you hold to the Sam Harris maxim on lying, that you must never lie in any situation? All right, let's continue. All right, I wrote this on November 17th, 2020. Life is the Shakespearean tragedy with the guaranteed worse outcome for us all. The comedic relief before the curtain falls is what it is all about. Bask in its pleasure. Now, the guaranteed worst outcome for us all that I'm alluding to here is the outcome for, um, let's say, for Macbeth and for Romeo and Juliet, for um, Othello, in that it all comes crashing down and they lose their life. And then, but and of course, through the tragedy, you have the comic relief before the curtain falls. And my statement here is that that's what it's all about, not worrying about this inevitable end. But to call it the worst outcome for us all, from a well-being perspective, uh, yes, um, death is bad, but bad things nature, has some bad things in it that seem necessary. I don't know if that'll always be the case for humanity, but for me personally, I would want to live forever. I wouldn't want an afterlife, at least the kind that is described in religious scriptures. I would, uh, I would want this life to continue forever, and I mentioned this in the live stream yesterday that, you know, I put this question to Richard Dawkins when we were in a limo one time, and I asked him, you know, "Would you wanna live for another 100 years?" And he said, "Yes, I would quite like another 100 years because 'cause I'm just so deeply interested in what's to come next, what we will discover more about uh, Darwinian evolution. Will we solve the abiogenesis issue? Um, these kinds of things." And uh, and then he said that, and after those 100 years, what he asked himself, would I be satisfied, or would I want just one more or 100 more? And he said that that very well might continue on forever because the curiosity, if it is true that the onion layers in reality go infinitely deep, then the curiosity, at least potentially, can run infinitely deep. So I thought that was interesting. So maybe life isn't a Shakespearean tragedy with the guaranteed worst outcome for us all. So I would say I disagree with what I had to say on November 17th, 2020. Oh, my wife was calling. I just had to message her letting her know I was live right now. Yash Varden says, "What should one do to live a fulfilled life?" Um, well, I have my maxims, the Pangburnian maxims. First maxim is certainty is almost certainly unattainable. Now, this maxim is meant to fill you with fallibilism. If we go about life fallibilistically, the letdowns are going to be few and far between because we already have some suspicion that we are incorrect about any position that we hold. So, since you asked the question, let me pull up my maxims here. Let me actually go here. This will be more clear. Do do do. Where is my document? So we start with the first maxim of fallibilism. And the reason why I start with that first is because everything to come after that, including itself, because the maxim reads, Certainty is almost certainly unattainable. That's the maxim, the first Pangburn maxim. Certainty is almost certainly unattainable. So it even states about itself that this maxim, there's nothing certain or incontrovertible about it. It's not a dogma. It is a reminder that certainty is almost certainly unattainable. And I'm just still pulling up my list here. So we start with that maxim. Because I have some good flavor statements and context to go along with these. So just give me a little bit of time here. I just rearranged my whole desktop, so I don't know where all of my materials are. But I also know I posted it. Do do do. Mm. Okay. Okay. So it reads like this. Let my first maxim eliminate dogma. Dogma, and this is the same maxim that we just talked about, but I'm just reading as it's written on the first published document about my maxims. And these will be converted into books. I'm working on them. I have a publisher. I've been asked to do some rewrites, so it's taking a long time. And with this big event coming up on June 1st, some of these things have been sitting on the back burner. But number one, certainty is almost certainly unattainable. This is the departure from dogma, with all knowledge and beliefs being controvertible, meaning that everything, including this maxim itself, is open to change and update or deletion. Number two, let my second maxim make me good. Maximize well being for myself and those around me. That is the second maxim. Maximize well being for myself and those around me. And this maxim makes me good. Improving the functionality of the body and mind will allow subjects to live long and healthily while serving their purposes. So, regardless of what your purposes are that you're going to serve in life, the reason why this is my moral maxim is because I believe whatever purposes you're going to want to serve, whether they're Christian purposes, Muslim purposes, whatever, secular purposes, um, that those purposes will be best served by someone who is flourishing and thriving from a well-being perspective. By well-being, I mean wellness of body and mind. So whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, wellness of body and mind will matter to you in how you thrive in your life. And where do Muslims and Christians go? For the most part, when they feel as though they aren't well in their mind or their body isn't well, they go to the doctor. They go to the hospital. If they get in a car accident, they don't go to church, they go to the hospital. So that's what I mean by well-being. And I share this maxim with Sam Harris. This is also his moral maxim. Although Sam Harris thinks that this is like a purely objective moral standard. But no, this maxim is actually fueled by two fundamental presuppositions. And presuppositions are these things we just accept because they feel right. Number one, life is preferential to death. Life is preferential to death. And number two, health is preferential to sickness. So those two things, those aren't given. You don't have to think that those two things are true. In fact, I know a lot of people who are quite agnostic to the idea of life being preferential to death. Luckily, they haven't flopped over to death as preferential to life. They probably wouldn't be around very much longer. And unfortunately, that switch does happen. But most people of sound mind believe that life is preferential to death and that health is preferential to sickness, regardless of your religious beliefs or what other values you may hold. So that's the second maxim. My third maxim, let my third maxim set the standard for communication. Good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. Being honest with your intentions and bringing your interlocutor ease of access. So the third maxim is good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. These are the laws that govern the Pangburn universe. All of my live discussions I've ever produced all have in mind this idea that I am trying to facilitate good faith, meaning sincerity of intention, and helpfulness in those conversations. And there are, of course, deeper conversation to have what helpfulness looks like. You know, one of the things is it looks like when you're having a debate with somebody, um, and you see them fumbling, instead of continuing trying to like smash them down and jump on that thing that they're fumbling on to score points, you would actually reach out your hand and help them out of that spot so that they can make the best possible argument that they could make for their position, helping each other, even if that interlocutor holds ideas that you detest. So that's my third maxim. My fourth maxim, oh, this one is so difficult for people. And it happens to be my superpower. If I was to have a superpower, this would be it. Let my fourth maxim afford me ultimate ideological patience. Patience. Number four, patience for ideas perceived as stupid must be ultimate. Now, the ultimate is kind of tongue in cheek, but unwavering. You got to have the ultimate patience for ideas that you perceive as stupid or bad or whatever they may be. Um, and I learned this a lot from Daryl Davis, who is the black man that dared to throw himself into the belly of the KKK and convert many KKK members out of that cult of hate. And that's for those of you who don't know Daryl Davis, he's one of my heroes. I had an excellent conversation with him on this channel, and I love everything he has to say about how to engage in intellectual discourse. Now, maxim number 5. This one is the unsung hero, but so important for you to be able to survive mentally in the intellectual discourse realm, in the realm of philosophy. So let my fifth maxim keep me lighthearted. Lighthearted. Um, so the maxim is simply stated like this: refine and express your comicality, humor and play in the face of contention. So this is all about refining your sense of humor, learning to let your sense of humor come into the fold in every conversation, regardless of how high the stakes and how strong the disagreement might be and how passionate you might feel. So heavy-heartedness is a bane on intellectual discourse. People coming into conversations um, with a heavy heart inevitably blow up and become irrational to their own purposes of why they came to have that discussion in the first place. Um, yeah, refine and express your comicality, your sense of humor. Um, yeah. And then let my sixth maxim, my sixth and final maxim at this point, let my sixth maxim make me inspired. Let art and science inspire. Realizing your artistic and scientific inspirations will energize your purposes. So, lack of inspiration is a big thing in people's lives. That's the way they feel. They might only be inspired by, like, making sure I make enough money on my next paycheck. That alone doesn't feel like an inspiring idea because money is simply, or should be, a means to an end. Most people treat money as a means to an end, but it kind of feels like it's taking over it as your life's purpose. But really, it's a means to an end. Why are you collecting money? Well, to survive, but simply to survive is not a very inspirational prospect either. Um, do we all not want to thrive instead of just simply survive? And this is a problem I have with Jordan Peterson's suffering avoidance calculus and the suffering avoidance calculus of Christianity and many religions that have been invented. I think they go about the human condition incorrectly. Human beings want to thrive. Simply surviving is a pastime of our evolutionary history. So those are my 6 maxims. We cover fallibilism through the certainty maxim. Certainty is almost certainly unattainable. We cover ethics with maximize well-being for myself and those around me. Um, we cover the standards for communication with good faith and helpfulness. We cover patience for ideas that you detest. We cover lightheartedness, um, the lightness that you bring to a conversation as opposed to heaviness, um, and inspiration. I think if you embody these 6 maxims, your life will be greatly improved based on whatever your purposes might be. These are maxims for everyone: Christians, Hindus, atheists, dancers, actors, sports fans, athletes. These are maxims for everyone. And there's no God in it. There's no demands for you to lose your God. Um, they're just, these are mechanisms that are going to give your purposes a grounding for success. And because of the first maxim, the maxims are always open, all of them, to update, change, or deletion. No dogmatism at all. Um, so those, I'll create that bit of an aside into a video in and of itself, so people can get a rundown of the 6 Pangburn maxims. And this, like I said before, this will be published into a book, and so that's my response, Yash, to your question. I'm gonna try to get through 2020 notes in this video. Oop, uh, where did we get to? All right, we are down to, okay, we got through Shakespearean tragedy. I just, I found it a need to make this pronouncement on, and it was a very unpopular pronouncement. This was on November 18th, 2020, and I said, "Pickled eggs are just the best." Yeah, that was a very unpopular thought I had, but I do love pickled eggs. I don't know. Do you guys like pickled eggs? Here we go. Live a life free of potential blackmail, as though everything could be exposed. Yes. So don't be so skeleton in your closety about the trials and tribulations of your life. Share them. Um, the I think it's healthy to share these things and to be open with them and be able to talk about them, uh, openly and intellectually to some degree. Really to have thought through each trial and each tribulation and be able to outline, uh, the experience. Expressing our experience is, an important thing. Almost all humans are going to have this feeling that they need to get something they experience out of their system in one way or another, whether it's through art, whether it's through writing an essay or talking about it through the dialectic. And this is a good thing, and people should, and I agree with this. What I wrote, in 2020, live a life free of potential blackmail, as though everything could be exposed. And I tend to live that way. Like, I think about this. I think you've maybe heard of this idea or expression where you kind of live as though the camera, like the world's kind of watching you at all times, like the camera's always on you. Um, and there's something freeing about that. Um, we don't need to hide ourselves from each other, or hide things from one another. Of course, there are, you know, degrees to that, and I agree with certain social boundaries we've socially constructed around, when you're at a when you're up giving a speech at a funeral for your friend that just died, you're not going to start talking about your sexual appetites, right? Like there are certain social things socially that we would look at and say, "Whoa, that was not cool, man." Um, and I think these things are good, and they would of course fall under, um, certain maxims of mine, like of course, maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you. You can really harm people's well-being by the things you say to them or around them. So this has to be considered, and this should be considered when you speak. And I don't think that speech should be stifled, and people should have freedom of speech and expression, but you should still, just because you're free to say something doesn't mean you should. Just because you're free to say something doesn't mean you should. So my next note here, November 28th, 2020, 11:48 p.m. You and I are predetermined nonsense. This is a song lyric that I eventually wrote a song about, and actually, um, SoundCloud. For anyone that wants to hear it, they can go to my SoundCloud. I'll just drop a link here. Uh, Predetermined nonsense, right there. Whoa. Are we through 2020 yet? No, we're still in November. Well, we'll try. We'll get through November, and we'll start with December next video. Um, Hand out some kindness and feel the rush. Hand out some kindness and feel the rush. Oh yeah, that empathy rush is something I constantly chase. It is the thing maybe I am most addicted to. Doing good things, acts of goodness for others, and this can be done in like cooking a nice meal for your family and all of these different ways that you can get that empathy rush. Um, that's, you know, on my pleasure hierarchy, that is at the top, if not at the top. Sex, everything else is far under that. The empathy rush. Um, in a way that you can experience this if you've never experienced that kind of rush is go out and do some charitable work. Go and feed people who are hungry. Go and go and do things for people. Bring clothes, new fresh clothing to a women's shelter. Um, you know, just bring cash to a to a hospital. Um, these things are, you know, these things. The empathy rush is what I yearn for most. All right, we got a couple more things here. Don't waste your time making claims you could have thought twice about. So this is just a statement about, slow down, um, and you don't just have to blurt things out. You can think about things and process them a bit and rationalize, reason, uh, and then give your statement, then give your thought. Um, because I see some people sometimes, especially in message boards and things like that, they'll like just like claim vomit their way through things, claim vomit, or they'll say it, in a debate, claim vomit, this claim, that claim. It's a form of gish galloping. If you're familiar with that fallacious style of argumentation, you throw so many things out there that the person just can't even go about addressing them. There's too many, and then they think like, they're like, you failed to address point 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of what I just said. Haha, that means I'm smarter and I win. It's like, no, uh, that's not what that means. It's fallacious to do that. And you know, all you have to do is, guys, is look up the Gish Gallop. But I see that a lot in the debate world. So think long and hard about the claims that you're willing to make and put your name on. Uh, it's not, and that doesn't mean you're always going to get these. The things that you claim are always going to be right, but I think they're going to be end up being more accurate to what you truly believe. Like I'll see people make a claim, and someone will give a pretty obvious like uh, you know, rebuttal to it, and then they'll reword it, and it becomes a different claim. And they're like, "Well, I really meant this." Well, you know, think about the words that you use and try to speak or write clearly. And then the last, oh no, that was the last one for November 2020. Now I'm going to be going through all of my thoughts and journal entries over over the past 4 years. So we got through a couple months there, and I imagine this will take maybe 4 videos or something about this length, and I hope some people enjoy it, and it's it might be worthwhile to you or not, but it is very much worthwhile to me to go back and assess and listen to my past self, and it really gets me thinking. But thank you to those who showed up today, and this video will be published for everyone to see who wants to come and take a look at it. And I will have Felicia make some clips out of this stream, and I will release those at a later time. Uh, Thank you all, and yeah, let art and science inspire.